washing machine, fridge, smart TV, air conditioner, kitchen items amadi makal khudingmakki home appliances idamak thoina waningai leite. Kaisampat Konjen Hazari Lekai Dalaiba Mezo of Impalna ahongbo mamalda item khudingmakki up to 50% discount offer pizari. Wedding set unalong matamdasu special oiba discount kayasu hamzari. Interest amatta yaudena 0% EMI loan ni kudong chabasu thamzari. Kudong chabasi mangan biraganu ngasi makleng sin birau Mezo of Impal Kaisampat Konjen Hazari Lekai.
Adom gari macha darkar oibibra supna gi minute kuntra gi manungda document ichang changbera bespa amadi aprilia gi apamba model sing supna dagi lupa lising tara khaktang puthok piduna loan oina lawba yabagi khotong chaba pizare Akupa marul kidamak contact obirau 9089895330 amadi 9615823252 Tulasi Motors Private Limited Thangmaiban amadi Sangai Pro Kudong Chaba si mangan bigano ngasi mag-contact obirau terms and condition apply.
Hello and a very good evening. Welcome to ELITETV's Open Debate in English. I'm Utpala, your host for tonight. Mob justice is when a person suspected to be a criminal is beaten up by a group of people or crowd with clubs, stones, machetes or anything they can lay their hands on. In some cases, the alleged criminal dies in the process due to excessive beating or they are set on fire using old car tires and fuel. Statistical analysis show that a lack of trust in the police and the judiciary system is associated with a willingness to engage in mob justice, while perceived corruption undermines trust and thus indirectly contributes to a willingness to join others in mob actions. Incidents of vigilante mobs beating up accused, including in courts, have risen. However, mob justice has led to the loss of lives of suspects whose names were later cleared of the alleged crime. In mob justice, people take law into their hands and they become the accuser, prosecutor, judge and executioner all at the same time. And on the other hand, it weakens the sanctity of laws that regulate human conduct. So that brings us to the topic for tonight's open debate, which is mob justice and justice, the thin line. Let me take the privilege to introduce our panelists for tonight. In no particular order, we have Mr. Paojel Chaoba, Executive Editor, The Frontier, Manipur. Welcome to Open Debate, ELITETV Open Debate. Next we have Professor Amar Yumnam, former VC, Manipur University, now visiting Professor, Center for Economic and Social Studies, Hyderabad. Welcome to ELITETV Open Debate, Professor Amar Yumnam. And last but not the least, we have Mr. Junior Luwang, Advocate, Supreme Court of India. Welcome to ELITETV Open Debate, Mr. Advocate Luwang. So let's open the topic. Let's open the debate. Let's start with the open debate for tonight. Let me start with Advocate Junior Luwang, since we're talking about mob justice. Well, Professor, can you tell us, do you think that the people are losing faith in the judiciary system in Manipur?
I think the question is for me?
Yes, for Professor,
okay.
For Advocate Junior Luwang, yes.
You see, if you ask me a very straight question, whether people are losing faith in judiciary in Manipur, I think the answer could be no. Although judiciary itself has a lot of problems. Okay, I'll explain little later on. Second is that, if the question is there mob justice because people have lost trust in the judiciary? The answer to that, according to me, is again no. I'll explain why.
Okay.
See, mob justice has been associated with our culture, traditions, and customary laws for a long time. Not only of the Meitei community, but also of the the tribal communities settled in the hilly regions. That is why especially on the criminal side of it, the criminal justice delivery system, the tribal laws, the tribals have got their own justice delivery system, even for crimes and offences. If there is sexual assault somewhere, they have a way of resolving it. They will ask the accused or the culprit to sponsor something, apologize, show assist to their own family people in the community. The defense will also resolving it. But I'm not saying that that is legal, but there is something which has been happening for a long time.
Okay.
Especially in the tribal community, even amongst the Meiteis also, we have a tradition of the old guys setting standards for the young ones, and then we try to resolve issues amongst ourselves. So, according to me, mob justice is basically a culmination of our traditions, culture, and more for a very long time before the laws, the actual statutes come into the picture. I'll just demonstrate is why it is not because we have lost trust in judiciary. See, the system how law works. What is lynching? What is mob lynching? Mob justice? Arguably, I'm not saying that that's actually what happened. Arguably, when the white, the 5 British people lost their lives in Kangla. Possibly from the British perspective, that is mob justice. I mean, possibly from their perspective, because their perspective is a little different, because everything has to happen through what they call reasonable and fair trial. So there is something which they perceive as a mob trial, if I'm wrong. So our system of mob trial or mob lynching is basically in the context of Manipur is a culmination of what we have inherited from our past.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, and there is something which is not started from parts of the world like Manipur. In fact, it started long back. It's mob justice not only in Manipur but also everywhere.
All over the world.
All over the world.
Yeah.
In Africa, you will see in Muslim countries. You will find.
Right.
In fact, it's very interesting that mob justice is very very closely associated with mob lynching. And if you say lynching, and how does the word lynching started?
Okay.
Lynching basically is the name of a judge in the 18th century.
Okay.
In America, in Virginia state. His full name is Captain William Lynch.
Okay.
So he used to deliver justice, to hang people without giving proper opportunity to represent themselves.
Okay.
So that is how the concept of lynching has started.
Okay.
Now, the second supplementary comment which I can make is that yes, the judicial system also has a lot of things to be desired. It's not functioning in India the way it should. For a number of reasons, and I will try to give some reasons for that. I'm not trying to insinuate that because the judiciary is not that great in India, mob justice is happening. Mob justice happens for a lot of reasons. One reason which I explained in the context of Manipur is because of our traditions, mores, and the customary way of resolving the crimes and offences. But when it comes to civil offences or civil you can say wrongs, those can be sorted out through settlement. That's fine. But the law we have today is that you cannot settle crimes and offences through any kind of settlement. That's a law, because you instead of taking law into your hands, if we see a crime happening, the first thing we should do is to go to police station,
right?
And then the police will do its own investigation. That's how law works. So when you start taking law into your own hands and then try to resolve a dispute or an offense on your own, maybe singly or with other people, then that becomes mob justice. Now, supplementary to what I've just said, I will also tell you some background about why the judiciary also in India, the judiciary in India has a lot of things to be desired. Now, that's because a lot of reasons. The first thing is that We have, in fact, this is a reply given by Kiran Rijiju, the law minister in the parliament. We have 21 judges for 1 million people in India. 21 judges for 1 lakh people in India. Whereas the US has 130 judges for 1 million people in America. UK has around 100 judges for 1 million people in UK.
Okay.
So there is a basic infrastructure bottleneck in terms of servicing our people by competent and duly elected judges. That's one. Second is that if you also see, the amount of matters pending in various courts in India, as on May 2023, it's 4.7 crore matters. I mean, 4.7 crore. That's around, say, 40.7 million cases pending in.
Wow.
So there is a problem, and there are also a lot of matters which are pending for the last 30 years, and around 87.4% in subordinate courts, around 12.4% in the high courts.
Okay.
And nearly, I'll give you an example. In total, it's estimated that around 1.82 cases are pending for the last 30 years. That means that this 1.82 lakh matters have been lingering in various courts in India for the last 30 years. So there's a basic problem with, but we're catching up. India is catching up. There could be a small linkage between, of course, there could be a small percentage of people who actually rightly or wrongly believe that because the law is not effective, because if I go to court, then I wouldn't get justice. So it's now to settle scores. So instead of complaining to police right now, I will, because of the lack of faith in judiciary, now I will settle the issue myself. And there have been many cases also where people have taken revenge, for what has happened to their relatives by taking law into their own hands and then committing crimes.
Right.
So that partly that would be correct. So that's my take on the first part of the debate.
Okay, thank you so much for the input, Advocate. I'll move to Mr. Amar Yumnam. We just spoke about the pending cases. Advocate Junior Luwang just spoke about a lot of pending cases in court right now. So that gets me to the question which says justice delayed is justice denied. So do you think this could be the reason why people take matters into the hands? Obviously, since it's delayed, people do not have the patience to wait for justice from the judiciary side. So could that be one of the reasons why it happens? And in fact, isn't it, it kind of shows that we do not have an efficient judiciary system at the present. So what are your views on that, Professor?
Well, I would like to differ from our Junior Luwang. First of all, let us be very clear on what justice is. Justice is a very sacrosanct concept, absolutely sacrosanct. It is the first virtue of any society. It's the first virtue. It's absolutely inviolable.
Okay.
And it cannot even be violated based on the fact that we have less number of judges, so we should violate justice. No. It can never be justified on that. Even if there is a strong tradition of, more violence, that cannot be a reason, because judges are not there, let us violate justice, let us deliver justice. No. That's absolutely wrong, very wrong. As I said, I emphasize once again, justice is inviolable. It's a sacrosanct thing. It speaks of relationship between persons, among persons. Well, earlier it was very limited. Now we are even talking of intergenerational justice, justice across international borders, more so after the Ukraine war, and in a diverse society like Manipur, justice across the communities. Well, when it comes to justice, let's not just confine. Let us be very clear on what justice to begin with. Because it is inviolable, it is sacrosanct, and it is a relationship between one person and another, between a from the angle of gender between male and a female. So when it comes to justice, there can be no reason for violating it, no foundation for violating it. Well, no reason. The what reason, take me back? Well, if you are violating by the mob, that means that society is yet to be constituted properly. Because justice is not something which can be delivered on the basis of emotions. There has to be very strong reasons for the individuals and for the society for abiding by certain norms. Certain norms. If we say justice, we are talking of the earlier days when there was no democracy, there was no governance. Well, let us look at any situation anywhere in the world today. There is something like mob justice. Well, on the basis of emotions, people think that this judiciary, purely legalistic. There are many aspects of justice. We are now discussing merely the judiciary. And before we go further, let me emphasize once again that justice is never a singular dimension concept. When mob violence delivers justice, so-called justice, there are so many violations of dimensions of justice which are being violated. Well, coming back, in what societies, in what context, this kind of a thing happens. And let me assert very clear that let's look at the societies. Well, any society anywhere in the world where there is so-called delivery of justice by the mob, that speaks of failure of governance.
Right.
Mob justice is nothing but failure of governance. Governance has failed. Governance has failed to prevail the ruling of reasoning. Government has allowed the people to act on emotions. No, that's not society. That's not governance. So, mob justice is never justice. And another thing is that instead of justice, it imposes, the way this kind of a thing is happen, it imposes the cause on the person who suffers from that social justice. And let us look at the, well, have we ever seen a case where a powerful and very rich person suffering from mob justice? No. The powerful people escapes from any kind of that.
Right.
But it is the poorer and less equal people who suffer. So mob justice, it is never justice. It can never be justified on any ground because of less number of judges or whatever. I'll say once again that it's absolute failure of governance.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Amar Yumnam, for the input. I'll come back to you in the next round. I'll move to Mr. Paojel Chaoba. Mr. Chaoba, do you think that people are losing faith in the judiciary? Now, since we're talking about mob justice, and we've been talking about the pending cases, and Professor Yumnam also spoke about the judiciary, the failure of governance. So, what do you think? Do you think the people do not have faith in the judiciary? Because as much as we say that mob justice is not correct, but we still see it. And it's even happened very recently in Manipur. So, could it be the reason that they've lost faith in the judiciary?
Well, accountability is one thing that we all want from the system. As we have a democratic setup, there are these various pillars that we say.
Okay.
One, the legislative, the executive, judiciary. Some people call us the fourth pillar of democracy.
Okay.
So, I believe from my side that all the four pillars has to be in tandem, in a collaboration, so that the checks and balances needs to be there for a thriving society, for a free, a democratic setup in totality. If you see certain instances, not only in Manipur, but throughout India, let me refer to one case of the Bhima Koregaon case that I remember, where one person, an 80-year-old activist, Stan Swami, yes. He was suffering from Parkinson's disease.
Okay.
He was unable to feed himself. So he had to drink, he had to sustain himself from a glass. So his request to the court was, please give me a glass to drink from and a straw. That was the, appeal made to the court then in the Bhima Koregaon case, where so many activists and lawyers, you name it, they were arrested, thrown to jail. So, in justice, how will you deny an 80-year-old person a means of his sustenance? He's not going to run away. He's not a young, spirited someone who can dig out tunnels or bomb the jail and run away, something like that.
Right.
So his simple plea took around 3-4 days just for a paper cup, for a cup.
Okay.
Now, do you say that? Do you think that justice is being done in this regard? I am not a a jurist or something like that. But still, from what we learned, what we have seen, as a journalist, Tamu Amar, Oza Amar is here. Our learned brother is here. Even I feel that our Oza teacher, Oza Amar, has suffered some injustice even here from certain sections, which were not rational. So, if you're talking about a very wild west scenario, there will be as per the geopolitical situation of that particular state.
Right.
That particular state, as it may be a country or whatever, as I refer to state holistically. But North Korean system, how far it is, democratic, Chinese,
Right.
Myanmar situation right now. I think Professor would know much better. But the whole thing, when you come down about justice, is like, I would say, we have our own brand of justice also in our state. Owing to so many factors.
Something which is not related to the court. But do you think that's okay? I think I'll come back to you in the next question regarding that. So I'll the next question. I'll move to the second round. I'll come back to.
Let us not just confine to the courts. So even if the judge delivers justice, ultimately, as Chaoba has said, the court can function effectively when the other parts of the government. It's a system. Court is not something which is lying somewhere far away from the society, far away from the government,
Right.
administration and legislature. Court can function effectively only when the other parts of the government also collaborate with
Exactly.
the court. It's a journey forward. It's a journey forward. A society it's not that even society is a part and parcel of running the government. Government also is a part and parcel of the society. So it is something which all have to function in a convergent way. But if we say that we'll let the courts be there and they will do it, no. It is the responsibility for all of us, for the members of the society, for the legislature, for the executive, for the administrative wings of the government. But when it comes to judiciary related legal justice, well, we seem to be forgetting the fact that it's for the court. And when, according to the convenience, we try to function as if on the basis of our emotions, well, court will not do it, let's do it. That is exactly what is happening in the case of mob justice.
I think it's because, again, Probably because there's so much of delay in the justice, so that could be another reason people do not have the
No,
patience.
no. Let me put in there. It's not that. Let me add up to Oza's point.
Okay.
It's not that. See, if you are doing a criminal case, you're like, let us take an example of a drug lord.
Okay.
He's been arrested with several crores worth of drugs
Yes. Okay.
from his house.
Right.
All right. And under the Indian Penal Code, he has been, like, say, there are so much charges against him of what, etc., etc., you know, you name it.
Right.
He has got guns, he has got drugs in the NDPS. They have booked him under the NDPS Act. Big act, no? So, when the IO, the investigating officer, is supposed to submit the charge sheet within 6 months, the judge will be there saying, Chalo, we'll do this, all this thing, right? But it is not up to him to decide until and unless all the things are properly made up in order for the charge sheet to be done. So, if the executive, as I've said, the police officer refrains from giving that particular charge sheet on time, that means he's got statutory bail.
Okay.
So where does justice comes in at a particular point of time? So we are saying that it's all like interlinked, that everyone has to do their part, if you get my meaning.
Okay. Yes, I get it.
That not only for, you can't just leave the judiciary system to say, we want you to be effective, we want justice delivered. There has to be some sort of a coordination, a tandem between all these different pillars, including the media. That's what we're trying to point out.
So there is some sort of a delay happening before it actually even reaches the court. So I'll come to that in the next question.
Let's be very careful while using the term delay. Delay is not by the courts. Let us be very clear on that. When you are supposed to appoint judges,
right,
you are dealing on that. Even the government has been sitting over the collegium recommendations. Forget the lower court. Well, there are so many vacancies. How many years they are going to fill up one vacancy? So when it comes to the judiciary related and all those things, justice can win.
right,
Government is adopting a kind of approach that justice relating to judiciary can win and will work in our own way. That is exactly where there are so many powers that be who are indulging in mobilization of mobs. There are so many cases in India where mobs are being mobilized, mobs are being funded by the political leaders. So you cannot say that just Mr. Justice or Mrs. Justice has failed, so the people are acting on emotions, so judiciary has failed. No! In no instance in India, well, we are yet to get it examined. If something goes wrong at the lower court, there are so many wonderful judgments from the high courts, and there are so many wonderful judgments from the Supreme Court. Well, correcting system. Well, in the administration, we don't have, by the way. But when it comes to the court, the correcting system, if a justice seems to have been, well, wrongly delivered by a lower court, well, higher court, so wonderfully they correct it, so wonderfully. You don't have that mechanism in governance. So we can never say that judiciary has failed in any case in India. We can only say that judiciary has been made to fail in delivering. Has been made to fail in delivering.
Okay.
We can only say that.
Okay, Professor, I'll come back to you. I'll just move to the next round. This question is for Advocate Junior Luwang. Can you tell us, there was this anti-mob violence bill which was passed in 2018. Can you tell us more about it, and how effective is it now since after it has been passed?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a not confusing, but sudden issues have cropped up, and I'll tell you right from the starting how that bill had come up.
Okay.
Before that, let me just clarify to Professor Amar Yumnam. I have never said that we should resort to mob violence because there are less number of judges. I have never said that. On the contrary, I have said that people have never lost in judiciary, but mob violence is for a different reason. And when I was talking about the inherent problem to judiciary, I was just flagging the issue of less number of judges in India vis-a-vis the number of judges in other countries. But I was not at all justifying that because there are less number of judges in India, people should go on a violent justice and then indulge in more violence. That was not at all what I have said. And forgive me, I have not made myself that accurately clear. Okay, coming to Utpala's question, see, there was a bill which is called the Manipur Protection from Mob Violence Bill, 2018.
Right.
And that's a direct fallout from a Supreme Court judgment or order, which is passed in the matter of Messrs. Tehsin S. Poonawalla, 2018. And there were around 11 directions given by the Supreme Court to the government and to the Parliament. But as far as mob justice is concerned, kindly consider these aspects. Okay, and these aspects consider, among other things, that there should be a very senior officer in every district for taking measures to prevent mob violence incidents. That's one. That in the case of the Manipur bill is a officer not less than the person holding the post of superintendent of police. Okay. One. Second, the Supreme Court also has said that you should also have a database of vulnerable districts or sub-districts where mob violence could crop up any time, and then take appropriate steps accordingly. Two, this also, I mean, the direction also includes another requirement of the government to basically require the police to disperse any kind of crowd which could indulge in violence as soon as possible. Then it also casts an obligation on both the central and the state government to propagate to the media that mob violence is punishable under this and these sections. It is bad for the country, and these are the consequences or the follow-up action which we will take to stop people who are indulging in mob violence.
Okay.
Then there also is a concept called victim compensation in case of mob violence. And now we will be the state government or the central government has to compensate a victim, because mob violence is basically what? Basically a failure of the executive or the police to do justice in a circumstance where law should have not taken its course. It's a circumstance where the police or the executive has allowed a few people to take law in their own hands, thanks to their failure. Compensation. Since it is a failure, you should compensate. You should have a scheme of compensating the victim. Now, these are then most importantly, the Supreme Court also has said you should also have a law which says that any failure by the police to stop mob violence should result in adverse consequences for the police involved. Suppose a policeman is not seen as taking the rightful measure which he should have taken in case of a mob, such kind of violence, mob lynching or mob violence, then there should be an adverse consequence that should follow, which could possibly be in the form of his suspension or dismissal. So these are around 11 directions given by the Supreme Court. But sadly, although a number of petitions have been filed by the Supreme Court for enforcement of these directions by various state governments, somehow this measure has not been taken up till now, although this order was passed in 2018. Now, you mentioned about the Manipur protection from mob violence bill 2018. So this basically this bill was passed by both the houses of Manipur. It's a kind of compliance with the Supreme Court judgment which I just mentioned, which is S. Poonawalla 2018 judgment. It more or less is in line with what the Supreme Court has said. Now, sadly, what has happened is that it was issued by the governor first as an ordinance. But it has never been gazetted till now, because the governor has said that this ordinance should go to the central government for the president's assent. And the president's assent has not been given till now. So I presume that the bill has lapsed. The ordinance has lapsed, because it has not been approved by the president. And reportedly, the Home Ministry has come back with some queries for the government of Manipur, that there are the concerns which we have. So let's address it. But I'm very, very hopeful that with the kind when the matter comes up before the right bench in the Supreme Court, such these directions which were issued by the Supreme Court in 2018 would be required to be complied with by each union territory and the state in India. Now, like Manipur, even the state of Rajasthan and the state of West Bengal, they also came forward with their own bills on similar lines. But none of these bills has been given assent by the president. So as on today, there is no such act of bill in place or ordinance in place because the president has not given assent to it. But now, what we should do is that, I mean, in the sense of ideally, I mean, we should wait for the Supreme Court to follow up on its own orders and ensure that these directions are actually complied with by various states and the central government to properly make statutes. So that's what I can say.
Okay, but advocate, in case of a mob justice, what are the provisions that the police has that they can disperse the crowd?
See, what is happening is that the bill which I talk about defines what is mob justice and also prescribes punishment.
Right.
Punishment which is not less than life imprisonment. If it results in death of somebody.
Right.
Now, see, mob justice, and then there are also consequences that are prescribed for people who are indulging mob justice. But there is a small issue there. Now, what the Home Ministry, I mean, reportedly, as reported in newspapers, seems to be saying is that we don't need a separate law on mob justice because there are existing provisions in the Indian Penal Code. Because if somebody dies because of mob justice, it's Section 300. If somebody commits a homicide, homicide, then it's 302. And if somebody causes grievous hurt because of mob justice, then people who are indulging in mob justice can be charged with grievous hurt provisions and can be accordingly punished. So
but in case of, I'm sorry, I'll just interrupt you there. Just in case there's a big crowd collected there and the incident is being filmed, and let's say the perpetrators are just a group of people, but there are bystanders who are doing nothing, and the victim is getting hurt, grievously hurt. In that case, what about the bystanders? Do they also stand to get some sort of a punishment, or are they just let?
Well, actually, it is for the police to investigate. The first thing is that those who are participating, they are the ones who are committing the crime.
Right.
And the police also will apply the mind if the bystanders are also supporting, even if whether they were in a position or in the strength to stop the violence. And second, if so, what did they do? If they actually encourage the violence to take place, in spite of the fact that they could have stopped it, then possibly they could be charged with abatement. So these are there is some kind of a jurisprudence which is being discussed amongst various the government departments, even the lawyers also. That first question is, do we have enough law to stop mob justice? As far as the offences and crimes are concerned, yes, we do have, because mob justice is what? It's a group of people indulging in killing, indulging in getting say grievous hurt or whatever offences. So there are different provisions in the IPC. But at one point of time, we have to fall in line and comply with the Supreme Court directions, the Poonawalla judgment, and then come with a comprehensive legislation to show people that this is the legislation only for mob justice, and mob justice in any form is not allowed, and that it should be. This is the consequences that could follow. So that's what the Supreme Court wants, and it's just a matter of time, in my understanding.
Okay. Thank you for your input. I'll come back to you in the next round. I'll go to Professor Yumnam. Professor, there's a general distrust towards the men in uniform in Manipur, especially the police, for example, let's say. So probably because of the way they stop the people, the public, the general public, the way they talk to them. So, and most of them are always innocent, but then the way they behave with them is, some of them are even you could even call them big bullies, because people are generally scared of them, and then the way they talk to them, it's not very courteous. So could this be another reason why people the public does not trust the police, and then the mob justice happens?
Well, there are two aspects to this. One is to make the people who have been there indulging in violence by the mob, those who are responsible for the mob violence, to make them accountable. That is one. The other aspect is how can we look forward to a society where mob violence does not happen at all. So, is our two learned colleagues also have referred to. When talking of mob violence and when trying to establish justice of any kind, say legal justice, justice established by the courts, is not something which has nothing to do with what happens in the society, what the society desires. So, making people who were there indulging in mob violence, making them accountable, that is one aspect. One aspect. The other aspect is, well, what is really going on in the society? Daily happenings in the society, or the very scenario of selection for jobs, and the very scenario of unemployed, so many qualified unemployed youth. So, and there are so many, well, so-called leaders who want to behave otherwise. Well, I'm bringing in the issue of behavior because there are so many behavioral issues to be addressed too.
Yes, very true.
There are so many. Okay, I'm unemployed. I'm 25 years old, 30 years old. But, well, political leaders said that you organize some 30 people, try to attack this person, and I'll give you, say, you have whatever, if you like, 5,000, 10,000. Well, I'd certainly like to take advantage of that. Because social reality, employment reality, economic reality, political reality is that I don't lose anything in participating and organizing more violence. So we have overall so many social behavioral issues to be addressed. Not just making yesterday's mob violence accountable. So accountability and stopping the emergence of mob violence is an alternative. There should be no alternative of mob violence for bringing about justice.
Professor,
Because-
may I interrupt you there? So, is it okay to say that most of these mob justice is politically linked? Would it be safe to say that?
Yes, in one way or the other, there are some or political, when emotions comes into the picture. Mob violence means there are emotions involved.
Right.
Mob violence is there because things have gone beyond reason. So when emotions come in, it could be, well, personal relationship, personal advantage, it could be political. There could be other reasons, or that there are reasons other than region. That is the issue. The question is, we should try to rule out the emergence or the availability of mob violence as an alternative. It should be stopped once for all. Once for all. That is where we need to address so many behavioral issues and economic issues, political issues to be addressed, not just making the people accountable.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much for your views. I'll come back to you in the next round. I'll come to Mr. Paojel Chaoba. Is mob justice morally justifiable, like we just spoke in the previous round? Do you think it's justifiable in special cases? What are your thoughts on that?
Interesting question. So what is justice in the first place? Then what are the courts for? If you feel that the mobs have done justice, then is it justice? Or do you feel that they have done wrong? Who decides that in a society?
Right.
That's what courts are for. No?
Yes, absolutely.
That's what courts are for. And they are the ones who are the keepers of the constitution.
Right.
Even though our constitution may be a dinosaur, a borrowed one from many countries, the US, Britain, Japan, Germany, South Africa, you name it, no? Like we have the biggest constitution is India's constitution. So those people are saying that it's now becoming lethargic, it's becoming outdated.
Yes.
That there should be a speedy system of justice, not only like, what do you say, it isn't evolved, like humans, You know, we evolve like that. The way justice has its own evolution also. Some things which may not be, which we can accept in the last century, we accept now. Laws change, the constitution changed to
Right.
adapt. How many times have the Indian constitution changed?
Right.
Hundreds of times. To what? To do what? To accommodate the ever-evolving situation.
Absolutely right, yes.
So like that, we have our own issues. If you're asking to me on whether it fits in our state, that is under question. If you're talking about a more holistic aspect in a national-wide sense, in the under the Constitution of India, in the constitutional studies, there will be a different answer. If you're talking about it globally, then the answer will be very much different. But here we have our own also sense of patriotism, nationalism. For example, like when the certain protests, like June 18 incidents and all Manorama issue,
Right.
would you say that the mobs were justified, or do you say that it was a bad thing? So there is no clear black and white sometimes, but there's also some
there's a
gray
area.
areas.
Right.
There are many gray areas. But one thing is since we are in a democratic setup, the maintenance of law and order is a must. Number one. Failure to execute it means a failure of the law keepers. And if the provision that we are given under the fundamental rights as a citizen of India, for example, Article 21 says your freedom to right to life. Article 19, freedom of expression. All that, of course, there are certain areas where we cannot infringe upon, even though we have got our own very basic fundamental rights. But those areas are debated in our courts in such a manner that new laws are being made, right? The Supreme Court says that don't do this. This is bad.
Right.
But will the other courts follow suit? And the thing is, like, there are so much inherent issues within the judicial system also. For example, if you're doing an examination of the, examination for the magistrates first class JMICs, there is a bone of contention that those people who are going to sit in a chair on the bench become a judge. He has to have a sense of justice, natural justice. That's what everyone says. The fact is that unless you are convicted, you are an accused. So then, the person who's sitting on the chair, the judge, has to be at least experienced. So the argument is that one person who has just passed a judicial exam, some people say wet behind the ears, with no experience, but just by passing an examination, is he or she capable of administering justice? So there are so many debates happening in a judicial
That's a very valid question,
system.
actually. But again, would you think that justice would come from experience, or could that person be able to make that, even if that person doesn't have the experience? Let's say the judge, the newly appointed judge. Even if he doesn't have the experience, do you think he would be able to make a correct judgment?
See, we have a system of education in this country.
Right.
If you are a matriculate, how can you argue with me when I am a lawyer? There are stages of education.
Right.
That is why education is also a big issue. I will not go into the details of that, but people have to understand that in our system, there are arguments which can be done in court. There are people who can give their opinions. Like mine, I am giving it from a journalistic point of view.
Right.
Amar will give it in academic and economical point of view, which is most respectable. Our learned advocates will give his inputs on legal things.
Yes.
So there are areas where people are
Experts.
being professional about.
Right.
So if you're engaging a lumpen element, and if you're going back on the roads when there's a big bun, and you will be asking, what's the problem? Why can't I go there? Why can't I go to my home? Or I have to reach the hospital?
Right.
The person will stop you on the roads and he'll say, you go back or I'll burn your vehicle. And he'll say, it's in national interest. It's in the interest of the state of Manipur. So what will be your question, the answer on that? What will be your take on that? That is something which I can ask in retrospection.
True.
So there are areas where you just have to accept it, and there are some things which you cannot do anything about it. There are some things which you can change, some things you cannot change.
So I think mob justice is not justifiable at all, because we're not giving an equal opportunity to the person, the accused, the alleged accused.
The mob justice back then, 1 decade back, was like if your son has sexually violated someone's teenage daughter's woman. The locality comes down and burns down the house.
Right.
They drive away the people in the house. So for one sin committed or a crime committed by one person, how can you hold the others accountable in the family? That was rampant almost a decade back.
Yes.
But if you see the recent incident of a shooting which was on the World Cup night, the final.
Yes.
One person had just shot randomly.
Right.
Or maybe on purpose.
Okay, yes.
One woman died. But when we interviewed the local club, they were mature enough to say that, yes, we will punish the wrongdoer and the justice system is there. Criminal justice delivery system is there. But we will not burn down the houses. We will not hold the innocent accountable. And there is growth in our state now. That's what I'm saying. Time changes, people change, the law changes.
But what would you talk about? What would you say about the recent incident that happened in the police station which was burned down?
So, the mob thing in Palel.
Yes, in Palel.
Now, if you see the laws which are there in our hills and as our learned friend had pointed out, there is something called customary law.
Okay.
So if you rape a woman and then in the hills, there are some things which naturally people offer some things,
Okay.
as some sort of an appeasement.
Okay.
That is within the constitution also. And if they are they come to an amicable solution, that is their affair.
Okay.
But in our eyes, that is not right. How can you let go of a person who has committed a heinous crime by just agreeing within yourself? So the law has different dimensions in many ways. I am not an expert, but from what I have seen.
Okay.
So but the question is quite pertinent because of the geopolitical situations.
Okay. Very interesting.
So what can happen in one community may not be there in another one. For example, if you are in you cannot have a second wife legally unless you divorce yourself from the first one. But for one community, other community, the Muslim community, you are allowed to have 5 wives. Go 5 wives.
Right.
So the law is very diverse. That's what I am saying when we have a birth constitution and we have a lot of communities in India. It's basically a subcontinent. That's why I point out that the law has also to evolve
Okay. Yes.
with time. Because we are now living in a digital era. People have to be informed about the law. I mean, if you say like, how many of us do have any knowledge of the law? No way. That's what lawyers are there. But the constitution, the Indian constitution, the government expects everyone to know the law. And the ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
Right.
So if you see that, I mean, how can you expect a person who's in the hills, who's on a hand-to-mouth basis, know the law? He'll say, "I'm sorry, I didn't know that." I didn't know that this was bad. But there are basic things which are bad. The rights and the wrongs, the cardinal sins. So if you go there, there's a lot of philosophy of jurisprudence, of the philosophy law behind it, and I don't think this session would be enough to go into all those things. Neither am I, what do you say, qualified enough to speak in that. But from what I've seen, there are some things which we can, I mean, we need to condemn, we need to change, we need to make corrections. And that thing is there, that responsibility should be taken by every member of our society. That's what I want to point out.
Okay,
We
thank you
each
so
have
much.
a collective responsibility.
Okay, that's a very good point there. I'll just come back to you in the last round. Thank you for your views. I'll come to Advocate Junior Luwang. Mr. Paojel Chaoba just spoke about the cultural or traditional, the law, that the customary law rather. So is there any way that, we understand that again law is different for different communities, but is there a way that the judiciary system can intervene in such customary laws?
Yeah, see, there are two aspects here. One is civil matters and one is criminal matters.
Okay.
Now, as far as civil matters are concerned, which includes, family matters, governing divorce, maintenance,
Okay.
Parental rights, maybe inheritance, all that. So, as far as those aspects are concerned, then customary law will apply. There's no problem.
Okay.
It's actually practiced in this part of the world. So that's one part of it. Now, as far as the crimes are concerned, the offenses are concerned, now that their customary law will not apply.
Okay.
Although customary practices being I have heard about this kind of practices from some of the people, that as Paojel Chaoba has explained, that if you commit a crime, maybe an offense, maybe a sexual assault, or maybe it is rape, in hilly regions, if you can convince the elders that, okay, I'm sorry, this is what I can offer, I can sponsor 3 mithuns or 4, whatever pigs,
Okay.
whatever, organize a community lunch, and that's as per their tribal customary law.
Okay.
Then they try to settle it, and maybe there is some kind of compensation here and there, but that is I'm told, an all-age practice among some tribes. I'm not saying all, but some among some tribes.
Okay.
Now, your question is very pertinent. But simply because they have been following this system vis-a-vis crimes and offences, it does not mean that that's legally correct. Now, as far as such kind of offences, any kind of offence, criminal offence, cheating, assault, grievous hurt, killing somebody, as far as this kind of crimes are concerned, the law of the land will apply, and then there is no customary law which is recognized vis-a-vis such offences and the crimes. So that is something, but the challenge is that most of such practices remain unchallenged.
Okay.
Suppose you know that some crime has happened in one remote part of the hills, because there has been amicably resolved and no complaint has come to the police. So generally, this kind of offences get resolved by way of customary law or through their own justice delivery system, and it does not get reported. But even after such kind of settlement, if somebody wants to complain, he or she can always complain that although I have been told to keep quiet because of such arrangement, customary law, but still he can go to police station and complain.
Okay.
So that's one part of it.
Okay.
Now, second part is that I think Paojel Chaoba talked about the possible change in our attitude towards more violence. And Amar also has flagged it quite nicely. That basically for a crime of one person, we are punishing his whole family.
Yes.
There are resolutions. There are the whole house being ransacked, burned down, the whole family being excommunicated from the community. That you are ashamed to the community, this and that. Now, the only possible, of course, there is a general awareness which has come up quite fast. One part of it, but I'm not very sure whether this kind of awareness is enough of, for some of us, especially people in the rural areas, to stop themselves from ransacking somebody's houses when it comes to serious crimes. Paojel Chaoba talk about, I'm not disagreeing with him, but I'm just questioning myself. Paojel Chaoba talk about an incident at Khurai where somebody did something because of World Cup, whatever, he might be very excited and then he blank fired it and it hit somebody, or maybe could be any circumstance. Maybe the locals took it lightly that it was an accident, or even if it was not an accident, it was not intended or whatever. They could have. That is why one reason why there was no mob violence or lynching in that vis-a-vis that incident could be that it was a lighter kind of a offense and hence nothing happened. But had been somebody like one person going to somebody's house, killing two people, raping one minor, then things could have been a status quo or could have been a little different. So I'm not very sure to what extent we have progressed to that extent. I mean, still, of course, our awareness has increased, but the government needs to do more in terms of educating the people as to what is wrong and what is not wrong. So that is something, a question which I ask myself, because when it comes to very serious and severe crime, things could take a different turn. Now, let me also talk about a little bit of a different dimension here. See, in Manipur, we talk about mob justice by the people, the people. Let me just think it over, and let me just float the idea or float the suggestion to you. See, I have come across instances where the police have shown the accused to the cameras,
yes,
and made them confess loudly and clear that I have committed mistakes and I apologize to you. Kindly, settle the matter. I apologize to you 1,000 times, this and that. According to me, to the extent the accused faces are shown to the public, and to the extent their statements are being made heard, or are made to be heard by the people at large,
right,
through whatever electronic channels or TV channels. I think that also is some kind of a mob justice.
Yes, it's public shaming.
A more serious one, because there is coming not from anybody else but from the law enforcement agency.
Right.
See, for these kind of crimes, so we have arrested these people, and then they are confessing, and here this, and which means they basically they are trying to.
I think, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
For this kind of crimes, you will be made to face the same fate or something like that. Even if you think it legally, there are three kinds of statements which are given by a witness. One is 161 statement, basically, which is given to the police, and one is 164 statement, which is basically given before a magistrate, competent magistrate, and another is 313 statement, which basically happens during a trial. Now, whatever statement an accused makes, or anybody makes before the policeman, is 161 statement, and that is not relevant for the purpose of convicting the accused. Now, if these kind of statements are made to be heard or made to be seen, or purposely made to be seen by the public, then certainly the police is trying to indulge in some kind of a mob trial or mob justice, vis-a-vis the accused. So that is something which the government has to seriously consider and take disciplinary action, because that is not done. In fact, I have put a message somewhere also in the public forum that this is something which the government has to look into, because it's just not done. They can't do that. So that's the input. But as I'm just repeating it again, that mob justice under any circumstance cannot be justified, because any violence is not encouraged by law. And actually, as I think Amar Yumnam also has said, that even if there are 10 eyewitnesses to a crime, but still the accused has to stand trial. He has to be identified in the court. Now, if the police comes forward and then show the accused, open their faces, show to the public, then how would the identification period happen, and how would investigation happen? because somebody has to come and identify them. Now, instead of the third person of the witness identifying them during the identification period, now since their faces are shown to the whole public, now obviously anybody can come and identify them, and that will be challenged by the accused by saying that this identification period has no value because my face was already shown by the police to the electronic media. So there is something. Maybe some of them have to go to the police training courses for some kind of a refresher course, but it has to be taken very seriously. Mob trial both by the people, mostly people who are not aware of the law, and secondly mob trial by the people who are supposed to know law and who are basically prejudicing agencies. So that is something which we have to look into. And another aspect also I will say a little disturbing that if you see these raids, it's very, very good that we have a huge war on drugs happening right now.
Right.
I'm little you can say disturbed to see that when there's a raid happening, mostly what we should see is the police getting into it, recording evidence, videographing everything, and then because recording evidence as such is not that easy, because NDPS Act and all those are not easy provisions. There has to be witnesses. Everything has to be done in a proper manner.
Okay.
Now, what you see is that in those kind of a very sensitive raids, you will see the political guys walking hand in hand with the police. Of course, everybody should help it. You can be a politician or you can be anybody. We have to help the police in any circumstance, but only to the extent of identifying the place where they should go, but not to the extent of co-working the police, collecting samples, having a press conference right there and there, and following the police everywhere they go for a raid. This shows the police in a very poor light. And secondly, the police should have stopped them. That this is okay, information retrieved, done. This is how, just where they will go. That's something which maybe they will be made to sign some eyewitness statement. We should not politicize our war on drugs. If something has to be done, it is to be done officially. Neither the police, there are SPs, there are additional SPs going for a raid along with somebody from a political party, whom everybody knows. So that is something we should stop. We should restrain ourselves because that is not done. The police should say no to it. War on drugs is a good war, but let's do it properly. By following the
actual procedure, the right procedure.
But not by giving an impression to people that some people it's not a police which is doing it.
That could be one of the reasons why the public is generally not they do not have the trust in the police anymore, saying that the police is corrupt and.
What I'm saying is that the police should be seen acting by themselves. The police should be seen as having been led by somebody else. Because the police is police, they're law enforcement agencies. So there's a kind of message which they should give, not a message that we are also a part of a mob exercise where everybody comes in. We are there. Some people, activists are there. So there is something which they should be careful about. But if you ask me whether the war on drugs is a good war or not, yes, it's a good war, but do it properly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your input. I'll move to the last question to to Professor Yumnam. Professor, what do you think that if justice that has been declared is not good enough, the victim or the victim's family or relatives think that the justice is not good enough, what do you think they should do in such a case? Because again, it comes down to mob. If they're not satisfied and if they're not educated enough, they might just come down to mob justice. So what?
Well, let me share here two very interesting things, very recent. Day before yesterday, Tamil Nadu High Court issued an order directing the government to conduct regular refresher courses for the lower court judges.
Okay.
Because in that it was also mentioned a police inspector. Well, everything, the way the police inspector filed the case, he himself didn't know about the law, unlawful activities.
Okay.
And the lower courts, two lower courts didn't know what exactly the act was. So the High Court gave a direction that refresher courses should be conducted regularly.
Okay.
And the second one, mob justice, even the former president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, is most likely to be made accountable for the January 6th incident. So
Okay.
the question is, when there has been a mob justice, well, the whole administration, governance seems to stop. Okay, just some noise, something, don't do it further. We don't go into the details of mob justice to make people ultimately accountable. See, even the ex-president of the United States of America, after a detailed inquiry, is most likely to be made accountable. But in our case, even at a lower level, at a village level, we don't, there is no system. No system. Well, when we talk of a system, there should be a way of establishing the truth. Justice is ultimately based on truth. Truth is
Absolutely.
justice is truth.
Yes.
So there's no attempt from the administration. That is why I keep saying that when we talk of justice of any kind, judiciary, social or economic or political justice, let us not forget the fact that there is something called governance. Governance is responsible. Governance is an agency where the people have given the responsibility to see to it that justice prevails. But we have a system where everybody tries to escape. Don't look at it. Mob justice. Even the police will say that, well, there seems to be absolute big crowd, big noise. Let's not go there. Let's go after some time when it is settled down. Whoa. There's no scope for escapism. Now, the time for us is that every member of the society, every wing of the government, particularly the government part, executive part, should see to it that they behave responsibly. Unless we have responsibility, justice will keep on violating. If we behave ourselves, if we act with responsibility, justice will be honored all the time. So we have to create a kind of social atmosphere, administrative atmosphere, governance atmosphere, and a kind of relationship between public and the government, and kind of relationship in the society between one person and another is based on respect of each other. So let us base our justice on respect for each other.
Thank you, Professor Yumnam. It was very interesting and very informative indeed. My last question for tonight for Mr. Paojel Chaoba. Advocate Luwang, Junior Luwang spoke about the social media being a sort of a mob justice, and it's happening a lot these days. Even the smallest of some activity that a person might have done, which is not very agreeable to the public, is publicly displayed, and the person is publicly shamed. And then we see a lot of people with a lot of vengeance, the general people who comment on such posts. They have a lot of vengeance and anger, and these are the kind of people who would actually involve themselves in if any such mob justice would take place. So what are your views on that, and how can we control this anger, this dissatisfaction on social media?
See, no one should take the law into their own hands. The main point is that you are not authorized, to arrest people, to kill people,
right,
to harm people, to commit crimes. That's why the system of a vibrant democracy, as they call it,
right,
is supposed to be there, which might not be visible at the present moment. So we see that more violence. This is bad. Nothing should not be done, but it's going down, as we see in our state.
Right.
I'm not talking about the states. But as you are talking about justice, well, there was one case of the BT candidate flyover case where Rabina and Sanjit were shot down.
Right.
So the court conducted an inquiry to find out who is the murderer, who killed Sanjit. the courts kept on calling the prosecutor, the witnesses, etc., etc. Long time, 1 decade, nearly 2 decades, no? 2016, so a very long time this happened. Now, when one person came out with his statement, a 164 statement, before the magistrate, saying that yes, I sought Sanjit on the orders of the then SP.
Okay.
It was a statement made to the court saying that yes, I'm responsible. I did the crime. I sought him. What did the court do? They said, let the proceedings proceed. Where is the justice in that? I don't know. It's to the court. But the judges knows better. But we expect some sort of a res judicata, a finality, you know, to every case. Lieutenant Colonel Dharanbir, he said he exposed all those killings to me. He is an ex-army colonel who was in charge of the M sector. When he revealed the death of so many people, the fake encounters,
yeah.
and including the arms and ammunition being kept at the M sector, near just next to the governor's place.
Okay.
When the law says that every arms or ammunition recovered should be deposited to the nearest police station within 24 hours or to the district magistrate or someone. Still now it's not being done. So the question is being raised, why are you keeping all these arms and ammunition when the law tells you to deposit those particular arms and ammunition within 24 hours? So there are certain aspects where we feel that justice is being denied.
Absolutely. In this case, yes.
The fake 1528 fake encounters, the Supreme Court's passed an objective directive of more than 17-18 cases to be investigated, starting from including Manorama, the Pisumthong massacre, etc., etc. So when you're going to prosecute those Assam Rifle personnel, those paramilitary, those army, etc., etc., prosecution sanction was not given to prosecute the army, the Assam Rifles, because they have their own courts, military courts. Justice is also within their ambit. And that time around, how many army personnel wrote and complained to the Supreme Court that this cannot happen, and it was reported. So when such things are there, are we getting any relief which we are seeking from the courts? The people who are doing the investigations, they say the trail has run cold. There are no more, no proof. All the evidence is gone. The drugs have disappeared from the Malkhana. When there was this case of Lukosai Zo, the police are supposed to keep that particular samples of the drug that they capture inside the police Malkhana. Let it be a weapon, it has to be seized and it has to be accounted for. But when the original drug samples of the very, what do you say, sensational case of the Lukosai Zo issue, a drug lord which was, he's free now, and the blame is on his driver of 28 crores worth of drugs. So I'm not saying what is right and what is not wrong, but it's up to you to see what is there inside your heart.
Right.
Because there just cases are going on, and I may be subject, and I'm not giving my opinion on that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, like, if you're talking about justice, in your heart, you ask where the justice is.
Right.
That is the thing what I want to point out.
So that could be the reason why people are so angry within and dissatisfied with a lot of things that's happening. Although the judiciary system seems to be in place, but then, yes, it's misplaced, I would say. Thank you so much for your views. Thank you so much for your
Accountability.
views. Well, let me thank all the all our three panelists once again. Advocate Junior Luwang, thank you so much for being on our show tonight and for your valuable input.
Happy New Year.
Yes, Professor Amar Yumnam, thank you so much for being on our show, and we've learned a lot from you as well. And Mr. Paojel Chaoba, it's been wonderful having you for the first time in our English debate for tonight, and I wish to see you again in the future. Thank you so much for being on our show, once again to all our three panelists. And thank you, dear viewers, for watching our show. Please do not forget to leave your precious feedback. And before we go, just a few things that we should keep in mind. Please do not ever take the law in your hands. Please report any crime that you see, and do not try to resolve any issues without judicial help or with the help of the police. And everyone is accountable. Please be responsible citizens. Thank you so much for being on with us on this show. And if there are any social issues that you'd like us to cover in our show, please do let us know about it. Thank you all. I'm your host Utpala, signing off for tonight. See you again next Monday with another exciting topic in English. Stay safe and have a good night.